So, we got a couple more seats up here. If you want to make sure you can see the PowerPoint. So my name is Hannah Buckley. My role is I'm an AmeriCorps VISTA, and I've been working in Mount Carmel since about July, the end of July. And one of the projects I picked up is this community garden project. And the way I know it's kind of been, the role. Charmaine's going to tell you a little about the history if you're not aware of it. But I was able to connect with Charmaine, and we've kind of just been planning with some other people to try to get more interest in this community garden so we can really get it going. And then I'll let you guys introduce yourself.
I'm Ainsley, Bucknell senior. All three of us actually are seniors in the same course. And so the whole class is based around we're working with the community on some community project. So we chose to work with Hannah, Charmaine, and Jake. So we've been working with them really closely on this garden project to increase participation and just developing the garden in general. So we've been having a lot of fun so far, and we're really happy to be here with you guys tonight.
Yeah, I'm Andy. I kind of got the gist from Ainsley, but we're really glad to see such a good turnout at this meeting.
And I'm Kieran. So if you have one of the handouts, you'll see that we have our agenda broken down. So we're going to do a little bit of a presentation to introduce you to the garden, and then we're going to host some discussions about and just hear from you guys about what you would like to see at the garden. Yeah, and if anyone has any ideas or comments or questions at any point, please feel free, because this is what this meeting is really supposed to be about. We want to hear your feedback. We want to make this garden space a space that people in Mount Carmel are going to want to use. So please feel free to interrupt us at any time to give us suggestions.
I'm Charmaine Ryan, a Master Gardener, Penn State Extension Master Gardener from Columbia County. But I live in Wilburton, so it's really close to me to work here in Mount Carmel. And my daughter lives here, my grandchildren live here, so it's kind of like this is where I want to do things. The history of the garden, actually, our mayor, Bing Samino, had a vision to start the community garden. He got a couple plots and set them up on the corner of 2nd and Oak Street next to the VFW where the hotel had been taken down. First, I think before that actually, some Bucknell students did a survey. Is that correct?
Well, actually, I did a survey years ago trying to get it going. Then when we teamed up with Bucknell, we asked them to get involved in doing the survey also.
Okay.
But I had this idea years ago and tried to do it in different sections of town where you had so many empty lots. Because we didn't own the lots and all, we never had any success with it. And when I talked with Bill Vegas up at the VFW, he said, why don't you use our lot? And that's how we started up there.
Okay. And then that first year, you and your family.
Myself, my daughter, also Bob Griffiths, who was a friend of mine, he said, hey, I got a little bit of free time, and that's how we started growing stuff. And actually, that's the year you got all those trays of vegetables for us at a real cheap rate. And that's what we planted up there.
Okay. And then, so then the next year, my daughter became involved in the Girl Scout troop. It was located just around the corner. And we asked the mayor if he'd mind if the girls would plant it up. So the Girl Scout troop planted up the garden, mostly vegetables, but they did do some flowers too. And they harvested, took care of it, made some food out of it. I think they had salads. I wasn't involved with the Girl Scouts yet. Now I'm the leader. So after they planted, then the garden had to be moved because there was a monument up at the American Legion on the avenue, and the Legion closed, so they needed to move the monument, and they wanted to locate it there at the VFW location because, you know, they're both veteran organizations. So the mayor and the council did find a place, and they moved them without disturbing any of the plants that were already growing. How you guys did that, I don't know, but it was great.
It's magic. You just click your fingers and it happens. We actually did it in about 3 hours.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, because I never had the details on how they got moved.
All we needed was a dozer and a small tractor, and
Okay.
know how to move the equipment.
So now they're located down by the community area by the Mount Carmel swimming pool. And that's where the girls finished up the season last year. So now this year, we are hoping to actually expand it into a real community garden, that we get community members to come and plant garden plots and harvest their own vegetables. And that's the history.
Yeah, so we're kind of thinking about just our little garden committee of people who have been, we've been meeting maybe about once a month or twice a month now, just to kind of talk about what the next planning steps will be for the garden. And the way we see it, the garden can kind of go any of these 3 ways. And this is really kind of the feedback we really want to hear from you. So it could be completely a volunteer-run garden. So this would be, you know, set volunteer hours maybe, where everybody can meet at the garden and work together. This really fosters a social space, I think. So, you know, that community togetherness is a really a benefit of the volunteer-run garden. And then with this, if it is volunteer-run, our hope down the road would be to grow enough produce to be donated to the Mount Carmel Ministry and Food Pantry, which that would be that's kind of one of our goals. And then another way to go is the individual plot rental. So the way this works is, you know, anybody can sign up to maybe rent a plot. We are thinking kind of just a suggested donation or pay what you can kind of system. So and so this way, you know, an individual or a family will have their own designated plot, and they're responsible for the upkeep and maintenance of this plot. So that's kind of how that works. And then there's also, it can be kind of both. So we can have some plots that are volunteer run, and, you know, every week or however so often, you know, people can meet and work on those. And then there can be, if we're able to get enough plots up, you know, kind of like a split way where then there are some individual plots if only a few people are interested. So that's just kind of the 3 types of community gardens that it'd be great if everyone kind of started thinking about what they think would be best suited for the Mount Carmel space. And then here are just some goals that we came up with, which these don't have to be what you think the goals should be, but I'm just kind of giving you what we thought so that you can give us your feedback. So for this 2019 spring season, we wanted to try to double the number of raised beds and build an on-site community composting system and begin collecting rainwater to be used with the garden. And then some longer-term goals, as I mentioned before, to grow enough food, to have some donated to the Mount Carmel Ministry and Food Pantry, and also to just kind of partner with organizations that might be interested in the community, just to get youth involved regularly. There's an after-school program at the high school run by Hannah Monger. She's a teacher there. She supervises the after-school program, and we've been in contact a little bit with the idea of possibility of having that group come to the garden maybe once a week just to get involved. I think that would be really neat. And just kind of another thing to explain a little bit more about my role. So my role is, it started in July, and I'm here till the end of July, and an exciting thing is the position got renewed, so another AmeriCorps VISTA will be here dedicated to work on this garden for a whole another year, and then potentially another year after that. So they're really going to serve as just kind of a contact for the garden to, you know, keep the momentum going with it. So I think that's worth mentioning.
So a part of our project is doing a lot of research, like outside research and literature review in general. So we've done a lot of work on the benefits of gardening. So we're just going to touch on a few. So there's a lot of health benefits. So mental health reasons, like stress relief, when you're in the garden, you're kind of just in your own world, not having to worry about any other outside factors. And also just like watching your crops grow is really awesome. I've like done a lot of gardening myself, and it's just really, it's a good, it feels really like good to like be able to eat the crops right after. Love that. And also just the idea that you're eating fresh fruits and vegetables that you're growing yourself without any pesticides or fertilizers. Hopefully we can promote that.
Another part of research that we did for our coursework specifically was a lot of work for studying how gardens can be a place of learning and education. And we found that it's not just for kids, but people of all ages. It's really an awesome place to connect with nature and to learn about where your food comes from. The growing process, I've done some work in the community garden by Bucknell, and it's definitely been really eye-opening for me to see food growing in the ground. That's not something I've always been exposed to. You can learn about ways to be sustainable, especially if we have a rainwater system and composting systems. You can see kind of like a full life cycle of where your food comes and goes. It's really eye-opening for your local environment and to think about like the climate of the place that you live, and a way to connect with your local nature. And it's also a really awesome way to connect to classroom lessons, specifically for children, because instead of just learning about like math and science in a classroom, they might be bored and not interested, and they feel like they're forced to learn it. A lot of studies have actually shown that when kids get into a garden-based learning environment, they actually are really engaged and they are excited to apply the things that they've learned in the classroom. And they're actually even more likely to eat fruits and vegetables or to try new things, which is a really awesome thing. That I know I was a really picky eater as a kid, so that would be really helpful.
So we're hoping that once the garden kind of gets on its feet again, we'll be able to introduce some youth groups and maybe have some classes come and visit the garden regularly, which kind of brings us to the last part that we're going to talk about as far as benefits that I think is really important, which is just kind of the social and community benefits that a garden might bring. It really is something that we know from the Lewisburg Community Garden that it can really be something that adds to the cohesion of the community and just gives it a really good feeling when you go into the garden. However often you might go, whether it's every week or even every few weeks, but you run into some of the same people you have connected with there before, maybe some people you met tonight. So in the future, we're hoping it could be used as kind of a community hub where people could gather there and just have it become really a source of pride for the people who live nearby.
So, yeah. So now we really want to hear what you guys are thinking about the garden or what your thoughts are about gardening in general. So we're hoping to break up into smaller groups and just have some flowing conversations. We have a couple questions to kind of guide the conversation. But I think we're going to split into groups of...
So we have this big paper, and we're thinking that it might be cool to kind of just put some down, and then you can kind of chat with the people around you, and maybe write some ideas, jot some ideas about these questions that are going to be on the projector over here. So we'll just lay a few of these out. We'll hand out some markers and stuff.
Also, just as this breakout session is going on, if you turn over your agenda, we also have just a short 5-question survey. We're just very similar to the questions that you're going to kind of be talking about in this little breakout session. So if you don't mind kind of filling those out as you may be talking about it with other people, it'd be really appreciated and it'll help us, really cater the garden to what everybody is thinking.
Oh, it's definitely yeah, they're cool for like in classrooms and stuff. You put them on walls, and then people can like write all over them and like look at them. So it's pretty cool. Giant post-it
I've still seen those come through the black plastic.
You're thinking about the paper you put down. This is actually real plastic.
They real thick, it's real thick, heavy.
It's industrial. This will get
But anyway,
water.
we finalize the last.
What happens when the rain goes and
Finalize that. Put that out. Jake had sent me
all
over
we do is go towards the top. You know, it's like it all condenses right there. So I never water it all. Even in the middle of summer, I used to use it.
I emailed
But I just had a whole
so they,
things like cucumbers and
Write that down. That's a good idea. Any group feel inclined to go first?
I can share something that our group talked a little bit about, which I had never thought of before, was we could try like growing different colors of different fruits. So like there are all these like different colors of peppers and tomatoes that you don't normally see, and that could be really interesting and like bring in kids to like get really excited with working with the garden and like explore foods that they've never been exposed to before. So I thought that was really cool and not something I'd ever even thought of before as a way to like generate interest. Or like growing like exotic foods to bring people in and try things that they've never tried before. So I thought that was pretty cool. I don't know if anybody had anything like that they want to share.
our group was thinking about how once everything is planted and it's time to harvest, to have a harvest festival. Get everybody together and see what we could do with it. Bring the whole community together perhaps that way, and then more people can get involved next year by seeing what we have done.
Any other thoughts? Things that you learned, things that I thought of before.
Well, one of the things I shared with everybody is that when I put the garden down, I don't water. I use black plastic all the time. I used to work in the plastic industry, and I used to get it with no charge. So I started doing that way, so I kept the moisture in, kept the weeds out, and I didn't have to worry about it. So I enjoyed the planting and the harvesting, not with the pain of the weeds.
Tiny kind of group, but I definitely would love to do a children's garden. Maybe the local elementary school or the daycare. They're very active with the community. They actually do visits to the local nursing home, and they do other things. If maybe they could come out as well. I think their colorful children's garden would be really wonderful. And a pollinator garden as well. That'll help everyone's garden and be beautiful. I used to work with a beekeeper he lives in a distance, so it's quite close. It's less than 10 miles. And he's going to be splitting some of the hives this year. So if everyone is okay with it, I think having a hive out there would be great. At least one hive. That's really cool. Oh, and a seed swap. I have a ton of seeds and not enough space. Yards here in Mount Carmel are tiny, so I'm happy to share some of my seeds.
There were a few ideas that kind of tied together that I thought were interesting. Using vertical space to grow crops, something like pumpkins or like vining, so they don't take up so much ground space. And also, if there are, it could be for anyone, but especially with the Girl Scouts, actually growing crops for crafting, where like birdhouse boards, where to do all aspect, like grow the crop and prepare the birdhouse gourds, and that could also be used for gift giving, but also fundraising, something like that.
Oh, listeners would be great for that.
Oh, yeah.
And also increased nutrition, when, especially kids, or when I think it's awesome when anyone tries new fresh foods, and the more colorful the better. I think it's a great idea. And also being accessible to elderly. It's if they're raised beds and not so much bending, if they want to be a part of the process, and great ideas.
Along the senior citizen line, we had an idea about fresh veggies on wheels, like Meals on Wheels. Once they are harvested, if there was an overabundance, we could make sure that some of the seniors that couldn't get out could get some vegetables and not be deprived of their vegetables.
Oh, and another thing with flowers.
They love flowers.
Yeah, if nursing homes,
Yeah.
if Girl Scout, anyone, families or Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, if cut flowers. I know the nursing homes love to
they do. Keep
to
them in the
receive
room.
fresh flowers.
Any final thoughts? That's really awesome. I really love all of these ideas. I think really
Well, one of the things that, Charmaine and I were talking a little bit back here too. One of the things that I do is I can a lot of my food that I grow, and that could be brought into a lesson for the scouts as well as the school. After you harvest your stuff, teach them a little about jarring food and stuff like that. Making pickles and stuff. Pickles aren't just out of Boyer's or general store. Like, I make my own. Usually I oversalt them because when my mom gave me the recipe, she didn't tell me all the little tricks. So I did learn how to make some of the different types of pickles and stuff like that, and kids get to learn all that. The other thing is you mentioned about the vertical growing and all. We talked a little bit about the pallets, how you can make take pallets that they're throwing out and they're ending up in scrap yards and everything else. How you can make the vertical growing and trellises out of pallets. So there's a lot of things you can do with a garden, and I know growing up, my dad always grew in the garden, and it was always great to be able to go out and pick up a tomato off the vine, and that was your breakfast. But you have a lot of people that once they got into mid-rise and all that, they lost that space. They still have some of the tools, or they gave the tools away, but that stuff's still up here.
Yeah.
And the older people teaching the younger kids, you need that connection.
Yes.
So it makes the people feel useful and purposeful, and the kids are proud that they did grow something.
Ties them together as a group, then as a unit. It's not a generation gap. It's
Right.
helping each other, and it works much better.
And we see that in the fire service. The young kids are coming up, and I say kids, to me they're kids. They're 21, 22 years old. But us old guys, we're teaching them the tricks that we learned through 30 or 40 years of fire service. And we're still active because we're still teaching, and that's a big thing.
So I just want to say it's really inspiring to hear everyone here talking about getting people together, different groups, different ages, and I just want to say that I just respect that a lot, and it's really inspiring.
Thank you so much for sharing all your ideas. And also, just a little plug, because something that's listening to so many are so interested. We're probably going to say this again before the end of the meeting, but we do have a gardening committee, like Hannah mentioned, that meets semi-regularly. And if you're really interested in helping form these ideas and develop them into a really vibrant community hub that is the garden, definitely let us know, because we could definitely use some more hands of people who know a lot about this community and ways to get people involved. So it's a really cool opportunity to bring people together if you're able to give like an hour or two a month into helping this garden grow.
Yeah, I have cards with my email on them, so if you are interested, and you don't feel like signing up just yet, and you want to take a card with you, feel free to email me at any time, even with just ideas or anything. But yeah, they're right here on this table. So.
Do you want to do the garden demo?
Oh yeah, Charmaine. Yeah. So we have a variety of these seed packets here that were donated to us by they're left over from the Lewisburg Community Garden. If you're interested, please take a seed pack with you. Charmaine's going to show you a little bit on how. I mean, just a little. Like she has these little.
Very little.
Yeah, it's very little. Just kind of. I mean, if you've never gardened before, never grew seeds, but just talk a little bit about how you can care for it, and then maybe grow it into something, a seedling that could be planted into the garden later on.
Is there anyone who has never gardened or never planted anything? That's great. Everybody has. So, some of the things that, just for seed starting, because we have such a short growing season here in Pennsylvania, some of our things we need to start in advance to putting them out in the garden, or we're not going to get a harvest from them. Some things can be planted directly into the garden from seeds, but some things, I mean, and people can plant tomato seeds out, but by the time the plant's big enough to harvest, it's cold and you're really not going to get anything. So a lot of things is good to start inside. A good way to start some, actually I just made these tonight, and they're a little different. I have had, just took newspaper strips, wrapped them around a can, folded the bottom over, and put in a seed starting, soilless seed starting. I found out today, that's the first time I ever used this. I put it in and I watered it. And it never got wet. You actually have to, certain seed starting, soilless seed starting mixtures, you need to actually mix in the water before you put it in the pot, because otherwise it just won't soak up the water. Once it's wet, then it's okay. So actually had to do that. And then it's just simple. When you do seed starting, once you put your soil in, whether it's soilless or whatever, you make sure it's wet first before you put your seeds in, because once you water it, it's going to kind of wash it away, and then you're not going to be. So you just either, I don't mind getting my fingers dirty, you just make a little hole here or there and drop a couple seeds in, put a little bit over. When you're starting seeds, they do need to be kept warm. If they don't have warmth and moisture, they may not germinate. There are a couple seeds out there that do like light, but on the whole, most of them like to be in the dark until they germinate. Then after they germinate, then you do need to put them in light so that they start growing and they get bigger. They'll start out with 2 seeds, or 2 leaves, the seed leaves. And then once they get their second set of leaves, then they'll start growing more. If you have too many in your pot, the best way to take them out, because you can't plant them always that close. You don't want to pull them because you could disturb the roots, so you kind of snip off the ones that you don't want anymore. You do lose some. And then you can just also have a whole tray and plant your plants in that way too. Anything else, Suzette? Suzette is a seed starter, master gardener also.
No, I think your seed packets is a wealth of knowledge on there. I mean, they'll tell you how deep, how far, when to start them. If there's anything funky, sometimes you have to, if you're starting nasturtiums, you have to rough up the edges, and so you can just take that out to your sidewalk or something, or sandpaper, and just to rough it up. So your seed packets, you want to keep them, and make sure you read them. I mean, the information's there. It'll tell you what to do. So
Right. Thank you. And that was, yeah. See, I'm not a big seed starter. I like plants. But a lot of people do prefer to start from seed. And there are things like this, the radishes, the broccoli, the cabbage, they're all cool season crops. So they can be planted very soon. As soon as the soil gets just a little bit warmer. And they can be planted right out in the garden. And then there are other things that beans need warm weather to grow. So you plant those late in the spring. But as Suzette said, if you read the package, whatever you decide, read your package before you buy it. So that in case it's something that you're like, oh, I don't know if I could do that.
and the more beginner you are, I think the shorter germination time you want, because the harder they are to germinate, the longer they're going to have. So if you're a beginner seed starter or you're planting directly, you might want to do like a 1 to 7 day germination, or maybe up to 14. You see things on the seed packets that are like a 25-day germination, then be patient and put a lot of faith into that, because I think they're harder to start. And some things are. Some things you really don't even want to start with seeds. Some herbs, thyme, and like that kind of stuff. You just, because it takes so lavender, it'll just take so long to start, you're probably better off just buying plants, plugs, something of that. Radishes, or as you mentioned them, because it's such a quick start, I've seen where people use them to sow actually on top of something else. It takes longer so you can see your rows. You know, it's kind of like your row marker, so you can actually harvest the radishes while your other things are taking time to come up. So you know, they're more shallow and grow quick. So it's a great little markers for either the end of the rows or for the rows or something.
We all learn from each other. So that's all I have on Seed Starting. Anything else?
No, I guess just to kind of wrap up our meeting. So our tentative plan is to have kind of our opening day for the season be April 26th, and we're gonna kind of look to get some volunteers involved and really, if we can get those donate supplies to put up these raised beds and kind of achieve these goals that we had for this growing season. And the best way that everybody can help is, especially if you know somebody that might have not been able to make it tonight, but might be interested in hearing more about the garden, just pass along the information, pass along our contact information, and we really need the community's help in order to do this. So I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts. Thank you so much for coming tonight. We really appreciate it.
Oh, can I add something real quick? The girls and I put on, it's every second Saturday of the month at the Mount Carmel Farmers Market. It's an activity for kids age 5 through 12. It's called Power of Produce. And kids get to come do something educational having to do with nutrition or, starting seeds, anything having to do with fresh produce. And they get $2 in pop bucks that they get to spend at the farm stands there, the produce stands. And I mentioned this to Charmaine that I was thinking of doing our activity on community gardens in general, and maybe kids could do either art or jot down a couple things depending on their age on or to get them thinking along the lines of community gardens and what they would like to see coming from kids and families who might not know that this is happening or that it's a possibility, to try to generate some ideas. So we'd love to focus on that and pass along any information to anyone involved with the garden. So this is fun.
That's awesome. That would be great.
So we'll give you information in time.
Thank you so much for coming. Feel free to grab food on your way out. We have some seed packets available if you're interested in using a seed packet. If you have any other ideas or any lingering questions, please feel free to come up to any of us and talk to us. We'd love to hear from you guys. Thank you so much.
And please leave your agendas on the table with the surveys if that's okay.
And I wanted to mention something real quick. It's about a completely different issue. The Mount Carmel Public Library. There's another group of students from Bucknell, management students, that are working to help the library through some of its challenges that it's undergoing right now. As part of that, they prepared a survey for adults and also for students that we're trying to get as many people as possible to fill out. So there's copies of the table, of the survey on the table, on the brown table there. So if you could take one maybe and fill it out at your convenience and bring it back to the library, we'd appreciate your help. Thanks.